All right. Think we are live and ready to go. Good morning, everybody. Today is Taste Life Nutrition Radio and podcast streaming live as always on kuhsdenver.com. Today we have Dr. Dan Sneider. You are the creator. It's like, where's my word? Of the intimacy shift. Yes?
Correct. Yes, the
Wonderful.
intimacy shift. We'll be talking all about it today.
I love it. I'm super excited about it. I think this is going to be such a great show. So often, for in my world, I'm always talking about the physical. I always bring in the mental and the emotional, but bringing in, mental and emotional, it's relational, it's financial, right? It's all of these things that are so important to us, and they all can manifest in the physical and vice versa. And
Mhm.
so, we want to talk about all of these things and really make sure that, in full circle health, right, that we're addressing all of these things the best that we can so we can live, the lives that we're put here to live. So, anyway, I'm super grateful that you're here. Thank you for that. And we always start the show with gratitude. Gratitude can change the world. I fully believe that. If we all had a little bit of gratitude every day, I think that it would be a really cool thing. So tell me what you're grateful for.
Oh, so happy to share my gratitude and what a good foundation for our conversation. That perspective shift because it puts us in a better mood. Looking for the good things, we find more of the good things. So
Yeah.
today, I am very grateful for books just in general, but I finished an awesome book last night. I'm very much a reader and always have two or three books that I'm going through. So really grateful for uh, just that people write these interesting stories that I get to lose myself in. And outside of that, so grateful for my two wonderful kids and my loving partner that I get to show up as myself with. And today we're going to talk all about relationships. So I want to make sure that I'm grounding the audience a little bit about me, that I have wonderful kids and a wonderful relationship that I'll share more about as we keep talking.
Yeah, I love that. That's so good. Um, what am I grateful for today? There are always so many things that, kind of like you, I'm always in between, not in between, but in several books, whether it's in my Audible or my hard, like hold my book, which is
Mhm.
less and less, it seems like, as I'm always in my car listening, but it is amazing the great books people put out there.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, it's a great thing to be grateful for. Um, and I feel like I say the same things all the time, but this time of year just makes me so happy. I get to be in the garden, I get to be out in the sun.
Mhm.
I say this all the time, but this time of year, it's the sun that gets me outside.
Mhm.
Um, and it gets me to, being still and to meditating. The sun is like God's hugs for me. So
Mhm.
it's just sort of it's really the best time of year, and the weather here is beautiful. And so, I'm just every morning I'm grateful to be able to get up and sit outside,
Mhm.
and I do my Bible study this time of year. I get to be
Mhm.
outside instead of, in my blanket and all, in front of a heater. Um, so it's good, and getting the sun in my eyes. So, such a good way to start the day is, just with the sun in your eyes. I'll go and I'll bounce on my rebounder. Anyway, I don't mean to kind of go off on tangents, but it's all these little things that kind of set your mood for the day. And
Yeah,
it's super, super fun. So, um,
absolutely.
yeah, it's so good. Okay, let's jump into you. Let's talk a little bit
Mhm.
about your story. You've got an interesting story and some history that sort of brought you to where you are today. And I always think it's fascinating because, those of us who are in this world of serving others, right? There's always the story that like this is
Mhm.
this is why I do what I do. So
Mhm.
I'd love to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, thank you for having this platform, this space where, I am gonna practice some healthy vulnerability here. And,
Mm,
not easy for me, even though I do these interviews all the time. But I say that it's still not easy for me because I don't want anybody out there thinking like it's, different for, the people doing these interviews than it is for them.
mhm.
We are all humans. We are all perfectly imperfect. And my story certainly reflects that. And I want to learn and grow as I move through the world and share what I can and connect with other people that are on their own journeys.
Yeah.
So, the way that I tell my story is a mix of my own childhood and upbringing, things I did not have control over.
Mm.
And then as I got older, I had, more control and, made mistakes, and I can take accountability for those things too. So I want to model all of that in my share up to and including where I am today, which is a really awesome place, and is exciting for me to get to share some of that joy because change really can happen. So, yeah, my story starts off in childhood, growing up in a house that was um, on the outside looked really great, middle class, upper middle class. I could do sports after school and my basic needs taken care of, but was also a very dysfunctional and very unpredictable household. So I was not protected by my parents from kind of the emotional chaos that was happening there. So there was yelling, there was name calling, there were things being thrown. Um, I was exposed to pornography at a very young age, which had really significant consequences on my attachment style and my understanding of sex and intimacy. And, these things were not in my control. I didn't understand them at the time. What I did understand was I really need to take care of myself because I can't rely on the adults to protect me or keep me safe. So I withdrew, I avoided, um, and that survived. It helped me to survive those situations. But as I got into my teenage years, I had depression and really unhealthy relationship with substances from a pretty early age. And like I said, with pornography. And so it was at that time that luckily, my mom really recognized what was happening. My mom and dad separated and divorced. I started going to therapy. I went kicking and screaming at first. I did not want to go. And really quickly in that first session, loved it and realized, oh, this is a safe place with a safe adult. And I get to be myself and to be seen and cared for, even though I'm totally messy and angry and, all the teenage things. So yeah, moving from those teenage years, I started working on myself and knowing I really like this. I really like connecting with another person and growing and practicing new ways of being healthier in relationship. So I knew even in those teenage years that I wanted to be in a helping role, that I wanted to do some kind of therapeutic work. And yeah, as I kept getting older, I kept making mistakes and learning from them, and we can zoom in on a few different areas then. But yeah, that's how my story really got started.
Yeah. Something that, and I don't remember what the stat is that I heard recently, having to do with the pornography. It's just
Mhm.
amazingly heartbreaking. The amount of and the age that kids are now exposed to pornography and how it impacts them. The thing that I love about health in all ways, right, is the epigenetic component and how our choices really can create, you know, our future, right? It really is up to us, but so much of it too is not in our control. Those choices of um, being exposed to things like pornography or things like, your parents fighting in these horrible situations, and how that impacts us at such a molecular level, right? It impacts
Mhm.
our
Mhm.
DNA. And so I don't really have a comment, except it's just I can't imagine how these things change people when there's this early exposure to things like that. It's just mind
Mhm.
blowing and so sad.
Yes. And the word mind blowing, right? Like it's an expression, but the way you're talking about the effect on the body makes sense. And when I was growing up, we didn't have this body of research.
Mhm.
Now we do, and we have brain scans, and we do have interviews, and it's mind blowing to see the effects that it does have on our body. It is similar to, especially if it gets to an addiction level, where
Mhm.
we can see physically the changes in the brain and the connections that are wired in for a lot of times for pleasure seeking behaviors like the dopamine connection, which we know the effects that physical drugs have on our bodies. There's a great organization called fightthenewdrug.org. It's a
Mhm.
not-for-profit, and it has that name because they are comparing literally the effects of pornography with drugs. And we can see that in the brain. And we can see how it plays out on behavior. And in my work today, I talked about wanting to be a helper and wanting to do some version of therapy work. I'm a couples therapist and have been a couples therapist for more than 10 years now and work with so many different couples. And sexuality and intimacy and porn is uh, a thread that, I see in so many of the people that I work with, whether it's an addiction or not, the effects that being able to watch, video pornography has on our expectations for our sex life, and how our fantasies are impacted and how we talk to each other and connect with each other. So,
Mhm.
yeah, the earlier you are exposed to that, the different kinds of impact it has. But at any age, as adults, if we're watching
Mhm.
pornography,
Mhm.
it does have an impact on our relationships.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's a scary place to be, and a scary place that we've come with this, and this is such a horrible underground sort of nastiness. Anyway, let's get off of that topic because it just breaks my heart. It's so hard. But one of the things that you said, because now you have moved through all of that, you have grown from it, and you've learned your lessons, and it's the hard stuff that we learn our lessons from, right? And it's what brings you to where
Mhm.
you are. And one of the things that you describe yourself is as a wound healer, correct?
Yeah, well, a wounded healer.
Wounded
Yes.
healer. I'm sorry.
Yes. No,
That's
that's
in my
okay.
notes here. I just said it wrong.
No, totally. I mean, I think that both are true. I mean, I want to work with people who, um, you know that the wounds that we all carry, that they're carrying, if they are not, I'm not a medical doctor, so with festering, if they're scabbed, scarred,
Right.
like we want to heal, those wounds that we all carry. And then I also self-identify as a wounded healer myself. Again, not coming from a place of perfection or,
Mhm.
shining example. Like, I very much want to be vulnerable about mistakes that I've made over the years. And like I mentioned, as a teenager, struggling with depression, substance use, and as an adult, moving into relationships. I was married, had two children with my now ex-wife, and went through separation and divorce. And there are parts of that story where, I did not show up as my best self and had a lot to learn. And uh, for for some amount of time felt a lot of worry, like how can I be a couples therapist? How can I help other people
Mhm.
if I, struggled or failed to show up and my best self in those relationships. And over, what I have learned about myself and heard from others is that I'm not perfect. Nobody is. And, going through those experiences helps me to connect better with other people's experiences and to be able to come out stronger with lessons learned so that I'm not making those same mistakes again. That's the best that we really can do as human beings.
Yeah. Yeah. Were you, I hope this isn't too personal. Were you in your first marriage as a therapist?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. So like I said, I knew as a teenager, I really wanted to connect with people and be helpful and to go deep with people.
Mhm.
I'm not that kind of small talk person. When I meet people, I want to get into it and learn
Yeah.
about them and share
Mhm.
things. And so,
Mhm.
yeah, I went straight from undergraduate school to graduate school. I have a master's degree in social work. And I worked with kids and teenagers for a long time. I was a school social worker. I worked in residential treatment centers. And then as I got older, the people that I was working with also got a little bit older, and I became more interested in working with adults. And um, yeah, as I got married and we had our first child, is when I started working with couples primarily, because that was the phase of life that I was in, and that was the interests, that
Mhm.
I had at the time. So I was a therapist, while being married and having young kids and navigating that crazy and wonderful, part
Mhm.
of life.
Right. So one of so the title of the show, right? We're kind of bringing together
Hmm.
the relationship aspect and how it impacts health. So I'd like to dig into that with you a little bit because I think, it was is part of my experience as I'm working with my own clients and patients, part of my intake is, how are your relationships, how supported are you as you're going through this process with me? And, what does that look like? And do you have a history of trauma? And, all of these things. So even though it's not my specialty by far, I still need to know it. And
Hmm.
what I also know, kind of like what we said in the beginning, is all of those things have an impact on the health and what's going on. And so, from your perspective, what do you see in your clients and your couples and how it's impacting their health?
Hmm. Yeah, one of the reasons I was so excited to talk with you was because of that, whole body connection. And it is connected and it all matters. And I ask a similar range of questions where I'm not a dietitian or a nutritionist or sports and conditioning specialist, but the way that people take care of their body affects their mental health and affects their relationships. And so having that awareness is step one because many people do want to segregate different areas of their life, which I can understand. I'm a lifelong athlete. I was a college athlete and have always taken excellent care of my body. And at the same time, that doesn't take care of every aspect of my health and well-being. So
Mhm.
we do need to look at all of the different systems. And one of the first questions that I ask people I work with is, how is your sleep? Tell me about moving your body. Tell me about what you're putting into your body, because it affects how we show up in relationships. An acronym that I love and keep in mind regularly is HALT, HALT. Am I hungry, angry, lonely, or tired?
Ah,
And it's a
interesting.
quick check-in because
Yeah.
if I'm one of those things, I am much more likely to snap at my partner, to not really pay attention when they're talking to me, to blame them for something that maybe was not their fault, or maybe we have shared responsibility. And so yeah, that aspect of taking care of my mental health and my physical health together helps me to show up as a stronger person. So I do want to integrate that very much so in the work that I do. Just like you start your session with gratitude,
Mhm.
and it sets up, our conversation for success. If you're working with a client, they are going to have a better session with you if that's the
Mhm.
starting point. So,
Yeah.
mhm.
You're I just love this so much because I start the show with gratitude. So it's very intentional. I don't start my client
Oh,
calls
okay.
with gratitude. So, I mean, I just made a note, start my client calls with gratitude. Makes
Mhm.
so much sense. Thank you for that.
Absolutely. Yes.
So good. So something that I see, unfortunately, regularly is someone will come to me and their spouse or partner or the whoever they live in the household with are not on board. They're not
Mhm.
supportive. They're not, it's like, I don't care, I'm not going to eat the way you eat, and I'm not going to support you, and I don't think you need to be paying for this, or whatever it is. And it hurts my heart because it's something I don't understand. I'm very blessed to have a really great, supportive husband, and our relationship is great. Um, and if there's a disagreement, then we talk about it. But it's not this, kind of what I see in couples with this clash that happens.
Mhm.
How do you manage that?
Mhm. Yeah, well, so we mentioned at the beginning this program, this framework that I developed called the intimacy shift.
Mm,
And so I know I made the title, and so of course I love it, but I do love that title. I think it's really, really important because intimacy is not a static, thing that never changes, right? It's going to shift over time because we change over time and our relationships do. And so I don't want it to be scary that intimacy shifts and changes, but we do need to figure out how to respond when that happens. So in our partnerships, in our relationships, there's big events that for sure signal shifts and changes, like having kids or moving or going through menopause or having testosterone changes, injuries, right? Like all of these things are going to have an effect on our intimacy. And when I say intimacy, I mean both emotional intimacy, like how trusted and how close we feel, like we can rely on the other person, and how physically intimate we are, um, being naked with the other person, having sex, feeling that kind of passion and romance.
mhm,
So, all of that being said, um, two people in a relationship, we're always going to be different from our partner because we're two different people.
mhm,
And so when one person makes a change, like you're describing, like I want to change my relationship with my body in these ways, it can feel threatening to the other person.
mhm,
And that's a lot of what I'll see show up where one half of the couple reaches out to me and wants to work on things, has an issue, and the other person is there because they feel forced, right?
yeah.
Well, I didn't set up this session, but they're gonna leave me, right, if I don't come here. That kind of thing. And it can feel threatening, right? Change can be scary. So the devil you know can feel better than the devil you don't. And so, like
Mhm.
this sort of
Yeah.
change, right?
Yeah.
Like, and if you're working on improving yourself, let's say in some kind of way, I want to be healthier. um, the other person can feel scared or threatened by, oh, they're leaving me behind, or I don't know if I'm ready to put in that effort, and I don't know if I can be supportive because maybe I'm not ready for that kind of change. And so,
Mhm.
in my sessions, I am trying to understand, what is the scary part? What is the fear? Because that's often underlying that reluctance to be curious about the other person. So that's where I start, try and understand what that fear, that worry is, and then going from there.
Okay. Yeah, that's a tough one. I guess it's tough on my side because all I can do is empathize, because that
Hmm.
person doesn't want to have anything to do with what, I'm doing with their partner or their spouse. Um, but it's a tough one. It just makes me sad when people don't have that support. So I guess what I need to do is just send them to you. I'm like, okay, y'all work on it and then come back to me.
uh, well, absolutely. Well, and empathizing is a good place for you to be in the meantime. So empathizing it is really good. And we have, influence over other people, but we have control over ourselves.
Right.
So, encouraging them that what they're doing, if,
Mhm.
it feels good to them and it's helpful to their body and their wellness, then, they're doing a good thing for themselves.
Mhm.
And yeah, absolutely. I mean, referring to a different person for help and support is good. We don't have to have all the answers. That's something I remind myself too. If I don't know the
Right.
answer, I don't have to come up with an answer. We can sit
Yeah.
with that.
Mhm.
And yeah, happy for anybody listening or anybody that you're working with that's struggling, and wants to feel supported by their partner differently. They can visit intimacyshift.com And the first thing they're going to see on my website there is a free PDF that I put together with 6 steps for how we can have more successful conversations with our partners about big topics.
Love it.
And I would put that in a big topic. If you're making a big
Mhm.
lifestyle change,
Yeah.
and you want help talking to your partner about it, come to intimacyshift.com and you're going to get a free resource that'll help.
Cool. Yeah. I love that. And I think it's a really important thing for everybody. Everybody kind of needs that little bit of guidance. I talk about a lot, people, all of us having our teams, whatever that looks like. So it can be your healthcare team, it can be your business team, it can be your,
Mhm.
friendship team, right? But having those people who are there and on your side and who you trust is so, so important. So I always want to have the people I'm working with, do you have your therapist? Do you have your chiropractor? Do you have your whomever you need for your situation? Because I think it's so important. I'm going to piggyback off you a little bit though, because I don't do this very well. Is promoting my stuff until like we're at the end and I say it really, really fast and move on. I was like, okay, I'm going to do this.
Now
Um,
sprinkle it in there. Tell us,
I
please.
might as well because I've started this. I'm calling it a conversation, right? And so I'm excited about it because it's a free conversation. I'm calling it a health intelligence conversation that it's called the Ripple Effect, and we're doing it every first Wednesday of the month. So starting July 1st, the first Wednesday of the month, um, 12 p.m. Mountain Time. And so every month is going to be something where we're going to go deep. We're going to talk about, specific things, and we can have people come in and do a live Q&A and that kind of stuff. So we want to have these good, real conversations. I do this every week and I'm talking with you, but I'm not getting to talk with all of the others who are listening and watching and have
Mhm.
questions and that kind of thing. And so I'm excited about this because that's what I'm going to get to do. Let's dig into your stuff and let's answer some questions and get you some good information, at least the best of my ability, right? So
Mhm.
this one's going to be over lab work. And I
Mhm.
I love data. I'm a nerd in that way, and we can get a lot of really cool things out of our labs and a lot of things that we don't know to be looking out for. I think conventional medicine is sort of a lot of times sitting in a little bit of a, there's some blinders here. And so I want people to see how labs tie together and what the red flags actually mean, as opposed to just not having an understanding. I have people come to me all the time going, I have these labs, nobody's told me anything about them. Okay.
Mhm.
Let's sit down and talk about them because that's important. So that's what this first one's about. So I'm excited about that. It'll be fun.
I love that. I'm glad that you brought that up. And it sounds like it's coming from a need, you're
Yeah.
hearing from people,
Mhm.
I have these questions and not the right place to get them asked or answered. So you're wanting to meet that need,
Mhm.
and data is wonderful. It gives us a direction to go. We can just start doing stuff, and it's like random exercise, right? Like random
Yeah.
exercise, like you got to work out, but if we
Yeah.
have a targeted plan, we're going to see progress better. And
Mhm.
I'll connect that to my work because it's sad, but I get a lot of people who meet with me and say, I've had a bad experience with my last therapist, or we
Mhm.
had a therapist and it felt like we were just having the same argument. Like if it's a couple, like we just had the same argument, except there was another person there and they listened, but didn't feel like we walked away with these are the skills that we're going to practice.
Yeah.
This is the issue
Mhm.
we're having. This is how often it's happening. And then we could track, oh, this is happening less often. And people need that. We
Mhm.
need to know where we are so we know where we are going.
Yeah.
So I know this comes from my background in sports, like that wanting to have a clear objective, but
Mhm.
more and more in therapy, both individual and couples therapy, we're training therapists to have that mindset, and really solid treatment plans so that people are not walking away from sessions feeling like, well, I talked about my stuff and I feel a little bit better to have said it, but I don't know what to do differently the
Yeah.
next time.
Yeah.
So that's something that I
Mhm.
focus on as well in the work that I do is, let's clearly outline, if the issue is, let's say, a lot of times people will come and talk about a communication issue. We're having a hard time communicating, which is a little bit vague. And then I can educate couples on, okay, there's different ways that we can communicate better. And it's a skill, just like going to the gym to exercise a muscle.
Mhm. Mhm.
For our communication, we can track, how many times today did we use I language to describe our feelings versus you language, right? I guilty of this sometimes too, but saying like, you always do this, when, you did that, and so I did this, right? Anytime we're using you language, we're blaming, we're putting the other person on their back foot. And so that's a skill that we can practice. Identifying my feelings, sharing them with I language. And so, just one example, concrete skill that we can build, and then we can track over time how we're using it in our relationship and the impact it's having on our communication.
Yeah.
Data.
Yeah. 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 Data is key. That's for sure. I want to, so something that I'm thinking about, so I'm kind of jumping back a little bit,
Mhm.
because there's such an interplay with what you and I both do, because you had mentioned, as we're going through these life shifts, right? So is it kids? Is it perimenopause? Is it menopause? Is it andropause? Right? And not everybody knows what that is. So men have the potential of going through this situation. It's not normal to go through andropause. Men should not go through andropause, but
Mhm.
there's a situation where testosterone can dip. When testosterone dips, right? I mean, what happens? You lose motivation, you get fluffy,
Mhm.
you're frustrated, you're depressed, right? It's a really not a good place to be, but it's all a lifestyle situation. I say all of this because I'm curious, all of these things can have such an impact on a relationship, which then also then has an impact again on health. And so I always see, when I'm talking with people, I talk about stress being excuse me, stress being the number one factor in everything, and everything comes off of that. So we've got stress, which can push inflammation, which can push stress, which can push adrenal dysfunction, which can push inflammation, which can push stress, right? And then you bring in the financial stress and the relational stress, which is going to push inflammation and create
Mhm.
hormonal dysfunction, right? I mean, I see these arrows and these bubbles all in my head just going back and forth and back and forth. But it all really kind of comes from stress, whether it's physical, mental, and emotional, whatever it is. The stress is sitting there and pushes all of it, and then it all feeds off of each other. And that's when you start seeing people physically, mentally, and emotionally doing this downward spiral. And it's a hard thing to manage. So, in your experience, are you how I think how do you talk with people about how that physical health plays it into their relational health, when I think a lot of people just don't really see it that way. They
Mhm.
also don't know that the way that they're feeling is because it's a lifestyle
Mhm.
choice. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, there's some disconnection happening there, and
yeah.
uh, part of it has to do with our modern life and like the setup where we have to think differently about what we eat and how we move our body because we have choices now that we didn't have before, like being
Mhm.
out in the sun and moving our body and eating things that grew in the ground or we had to chase. Like it looked different before, and so now we're disconnected from some of those things and have to consciously add them back in. And the way that I approach most of these things is starting with the foundation, just the education part. Do we understand our bodies, right? And I'll raise my hand and say I didn't know that term
Mhm.
andropause. So yeah, thank you for
Oh,
sharing it. And I think I had
yeah.
mentioned earlier, like, men can have testosterone changes, but I didn't know the term for it. And
Hmm.
I'm a man in a man's body, and these are not things that are, taught, and discussed. And same for women's health, under researched, understudied. And, if you are in a relationship with a female partner, you are learning about perimenopause and about hormonal changes, and you're getting a crash course. But starting with education for sure, just so we can understand physically what's happening, automatically will lower some stress. Um, Anxiety functions best in darkness, right? If we don't know, we're going to feel anxious and worried. It's an evolutionary trait that's helpful some of the time. But getting more information lowers our anxiety because then we can account for, all right, this is what's happening. Now I understand it, and we can talk about what to do next.
Yeah.
Feel more in control over it.
Mhm.
So, having conversations. So now we get to communication. So we've got the education and then being able to talk about it together, so that each person knows what's happening and how we're feeling about it is then going to lower stress too, because we can support each other in our needs. In a healthy relationship, we're both going to have needs. And if we can share with the other person what those needs are, trust that they're going to help us, support us, our stress is going to go down and we're stronger together than we are by ourselves. So that's when it functions well. And sometimes it doesn't function well. So two things to put out there for your audience. One, people wait too long to ask for help. I will say that I have done that in the past, and I try not to do that as much in the present.
Yeah.
But we wait too long to ask for help until there's a bigger problem, and then it's harder to resolve, right?
Mhm.
So if we wait until stress is overwhelming and debilitating, it's just more difficult to manage. So I encourage people reach out for support earlier, more often. And then the other pathway, okay, if we did wait too long and now here we are, we can't be as proactive. We're sort of just putting out fires at that point. And we can still do that. It's just a little bit more challenging. So a lot of what I do, I mentioned before about data and about helping couples have these conversations about hard topics, is putting practices in place that are repeatable. So and this is what I recommend for my couples, if we have on the calendar once a week or once a month, we have a relationship meeting where we get together and we talk about stuff. Uh, we are going to talk about things more often and we're going to normalize having these conversations versus many couples, they don't talk about things regularly or they put it off and then it gets bigger and harder to discuss.
Mhm.
So I want to normalize for couples like putting a meeting on the calendar so that everybody knows on Sundays at 3 o'clock, this is where we can come together and we can talk about finances, or
Mhm.
we can talk about medication changes or hormone changes, or we can make a plan for date night for this week. We can do all sorts of things with that
Mhm.
time. But by setting aside the time, we prioritize it and make sure it happens.
Mhm. I love that. I love that. I have certainly been guilty of letting things sit and fester.
Hmm.
It's not good and it
Yeah.
doesn't feel good.
Yeah, that's right.
One of the things you said a few minutes ago was, these basic things that I think are so important that we do have to make a practice of now because we don't do it anymore. But it's the getting out in the sun and the walking in the grass and all of these things that help us connect to nature and to each other, and to God and to all of these, the beauty that is this natural world that grounds us, like literally electrically grounds us, right? And
Mhm.
energetically grounds us. With that being said, there is also then so much, and this is a conversation everywhere, and it's a little bit old, but it's part of it, the social media, right? We're
Mhm.
constantly on the social media or we're constantly on our phone. It's this interesting thing where you go to a restaurant and you see couples sitting there and or couples and kids or whatever it is, and everybody's sitting there like this on their phone instead of talking to each other like this. What do you see or do you see in practice that impacting relationships?
Yeah, yeah. It took us a little while to get to phones, but we got to hear in the conversation, and it should be a part of relationship conversations and just health and well-being. So I do talk about phone use and social media and technology regularly because it's a big part of all of our lives.
Hmm.
And so I approach it from two directions. Number one, your phone is a casino designed by experts to capture your attention. It's really, really good at what it
Good
does.
way of putting it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's good at what it does.
Mhm.
And so approaching it from that place is helpful. So um, there are a number of really good apps that will put some time in between the impulse and the action. So on my phone, I have an app that, like, if I go to open, let's say Instagram or social media, you can set it to any app you want. If
Mhm.
I go to open it, a screen will show up that say, "Are you sure you want to open this?" And it'll wait 10 seconds. And that 10 seconds is really huge because as an animal, the more time I have between an impulse and a behavior, like that gives me time to think through it. Time
Mhm.
for, the animal part of my brain that had an impulse, like I'm
Mhm.
bored, I'm
Yeah.
hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. So I grabbed my phone to the front of my brain where I make decisions,
Yeah.
adult decisions, and think, oh, okay, with that 10 seconds, you know what? I really don't need to be on,
Mhm.
this app right now. And so I have a choice. I can put my phone away. Or there are apps that limit the amount of time you can spend on a given app. So you can, set a hard time limit for, let's say, 10 minutes. I'm on that app for 10 minutes and then my phone closes it. And now again, I have an opportunity to check in with myself, feel my body. Okay, I actually don't want to be on my phone for another 10 minutes, so I can
Mhm.
stand up and make a different choice. So that's a behavioral intervention that, even though we're these really evolved, clever mammals, we're still animals. And so
Mhm.
having that hard behavior line on the
Yeah.
phone is incredibly helpful. So I recommend that people look into some kind of tool like that to limit their time or to give them a few extra seconds to decide, do I really want to be on this? So that's one part. That's the behavioral part. The relational part is, let's make our phones less interesting by having things in our life that
Mhm.
are cooler and more exciting.
Yeah.
So the phone looks really exciting when I don't have a great book on the shelf, when I'm in an argument with my partner, or I haven't made plans with a friend. The phone looks better when I don't have those
Yeah.
things because the
Yeah.
phone's exciting.
Mhm.
So I want to create a really rich life so I have better alternatives.
Mhm.
So with that 10 seconds that I've created for myself before the app will open, I can think, I would rather call a buddy and,
Mhm.
check in with them, have a real
Mhm.
life connection. Or I'm going to pick up that book on my shelf. I'm going to see what my partner's doing in the garden. Oh my gosh, they're outside, getting grounded and playing with the
Yeah.
flowers. Like, that looks fun. I'm going to
Yeah.
join them.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the two approaches, the relational approach and then the behavior one.
Mhm. Mhm. I love that. I'm looking outside right now. I'm like, I just need to be in the sun right now. That's the best thing that gets me away from my phone and my computer is just a little bit of time to sit and soak it in for a little bit. It's so good. Which, as soon as we're finished, that's what I'm going to go do. So, so good. Let's talk about relationships and longevity. Because kind of it plays a little bit off of the health and wellness aspect of it. But when we have less stress in all ways, right? The impacts of stress are less on us physically, right? And so if we are less stressed in our relationship, it's only going to do one thing in most cases, right? It's going to help with longevity as well as, and I have this, the like our new sort of fad term is longevity, and I really like longevity. I like because it's really about quality, right? I mean, I don't know what's going to happen to me tomorrow or in the next moment, but I want to know that I'm doing everything I can, and I'm walking and I'm talking and I'm serving and all of these things that I have the ability to do right now for as long as I'm walking on this earth. But if we are constantly stressed, if we're not taking care of ourselves, if our relationships are dysfunctional, it's going to create more stress and it will decrease our lifespan. It's just data, right?
Mhm. Yes.
Yeah. hmm So what are you seeing as far as um, how people are connecting? And I guess the question is, what do you see in people when they come to you dysfunctional? And not another word that I'm not super excited about, but it is what it is. Um, and
Yeah.
and then when they come together and actually partner with each other, I talk about this with our body a lot, right? When we partner with our body, and I don't like the
Mm-hmm.
body being dysfunctional. The body is giving us what we're giving to
Hmm.
it, right? So it's not dysfunction. It's this is what I know to do. I need your help. Let's join in together and partner together. And it's really what you're doing also is you're
Hmm.
bringing people who are in this place where they're like, we got to figure something out. We got to work together to move forward so we can have this optimal relationship. Yeah. Which
Yeah.
creates longevity.
It does. And I won't get into all the science and the different research studies, but they are easily found, for anybody who does want some of those numbers. But yeah, the more connected we are to other people, the better the quality of our life and the the longer that we will live, literally. Like partnered people live longer than people who don't have a partner.
Mhm.
But yeah, I'll take quality over quantity. I'd rather, live a shorter, higher quality life, but we don't have to make that trade-off. So yeah, I won't get all into the research on that. And what I will say is there's a moment when I'm in sessions with a couple. And this is truly why I do the work that I do, because you can see in the moment when a couple goes from two separate people,
Mhm.
looking at me saying, Dan, you won't believe this, or they did that. And there's stress, there's frustration, resentment, closed off. And through work that we can do together, there's an actual moment that will happen where they will turn towards each other. And one person will physically, reach out, put a hand or a hand on a shoulder, and you can see all the muscle tension in their
Mhm.
body lower. The shoulders relax, the face muscles soften, and they're really looking at each other and connected both physically and emotionally in that moment. And you can visibly see the quality of their life improve, the stress go away,
Mhm.
even if it's just for that moment. You can see years come off, and it's amazing. And it takes work and effort to get there.
Mhm.
But gosh, it's so worth it.
How cool. You gave me chills when you said that. I mean, I would imagine that that's just a really amazing thing to be a part of and to witness that experience.
Yeah, I feel so grateful for that, and
Yeah.
grateful for the couples who trust me, to be on this difficult journey with them.
Mhm.
And yeah, that connection to another person, it's, we've talked a lot about basic animal needs, right? Like food and
Mhm.
sunshine. Love and connection is just as important. We truly, physically cannot survive without close connection. We are social creatures. And so, yeah, that absolutely affects
Mhm.
longevity. And
Mhm.
um, yeah, we get ourselves into messes, and relationships do truly become dysfunctional, and they can become functional again. If we address them, just like these other aspects that you're helping people work on too.
Yeah. Super cool. Let's talk about, I have a note here, something that you talk about, which is attachment theory.
Mhm.
Tell me about attachment theory.
Yeah, absolutely. So, again, like data driven, heavily researched, um, social creatures. So, from a young age, we develop a style of how we attach to the people that take care of us.
Mhm.
Babies cannot survive without help, period. And so, if we have an attachment figure who is stable and safe and trustworthy and meets our needs, we'll develop what's called a secure attachment, which means as we get older, we can have relationships with people that are trusting because we believe that our needs will be met. So, you as my partner, you can go to work, you can have friends, you can have your social life, and you will also come back to me and we will have our partnership together. And there's trust and
Mhm.
um, consistency that we show up for each other. um, Different version of upbringing, when children are raised in households where their needs are inconsistently met. So they're met some of the time, or met part way, or met begrudgingly. We develop an insecure kind of attachment to other people where either we learn to meet more of our needs by ourselves, kind of like how I described myself, more avoidant, more
Mhm.
avoidantly attached, where when I feel in danger, I curl up within myself and put a wall up, and you can't hurt me, but you also can't get to me.
Yeah.
So I'm cutting myself off from connection in this way. Same thing for insecure kind of attachment that's more anxious. So
Mhm.
another way, if we're raised in a situation where we can't rely on caregiving, is to be anxiously attached, which is sort of this constant need for reassurance.
Mhm.
So I'm gonna call you 10 times. I'm gonna send you messages. Where are you? What time will you be back? Do you love me? Why are you upset with me?
Mhm.
Why?
Mhm.
And it comes from this place of not having my needs met consistently. So it's helpful, again, starting with education, to know that, that's the range of different ways that we can develop attachment in relationship. And then moving from that, how am I showing up in this relationship and how can I build and feel more secure? We all want to feel super safe and secure in our relationships. And thankfully, it's something that we can learn, and our relationships can change over time. We're not just stuck to be, avoidant forever, thank goodness. And so a lot of the work that I do with couples is helping to put into practice, again, in like this data goal-oriented way, how can I be a more secure partner for myself and for the other person so that we can both feel really safe, seen, and loved. And there's again, like thankfully, data driven, research tested practices that when we use consistently, we feel that more in our relationships. And I just think that's so cool because I grew up in a way where, I didn't know how to do that. And now I do, and it feels so much better.
Yeah. So cool. So you are, and I love because I think that that's the thing I mean, everything, almost everything that we do is a practice. Some things are habits, but things I practice nutrition, right? I practice everything, not everything, but
Yeah.
it's a matter of taking the time when it's
Mhm.
important to you, right, to
Mhm.
practice. So what you do is you're working with couples together, but then you send them home. These are the things that you're going to do until the next time. Do you have them take notes? What do to kind of walk them through and see how they go next time they see you? And how often do you see people?
Yeah, great question. So, I have two different things going on. So, as a therapist provider, I will meet with couples, me with the couple or me with an individual. And that's either once a week or every other week, because, like most things, if we do it really sporadically or not very often, we're not going to maintain progress or see those gains. So, we do need to work on these things regularly.
Mhm.
And then I also have at intimacyshift.com, I have that free resource. And then I also have an asynchronous, program that has 12 modules that people can, watch and learn from, in their own time. Um, and that includes, yeah, homework and
Mhm.
practices that build on each other.
Cool.
And so, yeah, when I'm working with a couple or as part of that program, um, I have general things that I'm teaching, like, attachment, secure attachment practices, how to work towards a more secure attachment. And then I also want to talk with couples about their specific relationship goals and how to get there. So
Mhm.
my philosophy on teaching is I want to present, a ton of different ideas, options, practices for people that want to write things down and take notes, for people that want to have experiences doing an activity. And if one of these things works, great. We only need one thing to
Mhm.
work. So I don't have a one size fits all in that
Mhm.
sense. I put a,
Mhm.
a number of different things out there and then help people to create their own goal and their own trajectory for this is what I'm working on. And then this is how we're going to track progress on that specific goal. So, yeah, for couples, we will have homework each week. Some couples are more the note taking kind than others.
Mhm.
And so I don't like require that we're taking notes on everything, but we are going to talk about that progression each week. And if we need more help to complete the homework or to track progress, then we can use a tool like taking notes. There's different electronic ways that we can keep ourselves accountable to. So it doesn't have to be one kind of way, but we need some system for keeping track of our progress. So I'm
Yeah.
glad that you brought that back again to the data.
Yeah. 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 So one of the things that I think that you talk about, and so do I, is which is often missed, is the why behind why these things are happening in the first place, right?
Mhm.
So, in my world, it's not you have a pain, take an Advil. It's why do you have the pain in the first place, and what do we need to do? So it's that root cause. Let's find that. And so I would imagine, because I know it's uncomfortable when we're trying to find the root cause for people physically. I would imagine that it would be uncomfortable, eye-opening, creates an amazing amount of self-awareness when you start to uncover the root cause of why. I mean, there can be a problem with the couple. One person might have the problem, and they're, but in either way, it's
Mhm.
uncovering where the disconnect is, where the dysfunction is, and it might be totally unrelated to the relationship, right? It could be that
Mhm.
childhood, whatever it is that happened, and
Mhm.
so I guess just talk to that a little bit, and how you help people understand that root cause, understand the why behind their actions, and help them move through that.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, big question and a very important one. And for most people, I encourage we're gonna look at the past, and that root cause is really important. And we want to know how it's affecting us here today.
Mm.
So we're doing both. And for many people, that's really supportive to hear because, again, people will come to counseling with this preconceived idea of like, we're just going to talk about childhood stuff, or like, I don't want to talk about my parents. I want to talk about what's going on here today.
Mhm.
And I understand that. And so we do both. And so that's helpful to know it's not just one or the other. We do need both sides because as people, that's how we are, right? We are both our past and the stories that we carry, the scars we carry, and then we are how we show up in the present moment.
Mhm.
So when we are looking at root cause things, one thing that I'm well trained in doing, and that's a really important part of high quality therapy, is I'm not asking people to just spill the beans. Like, tell me the worst thing about your story. Tell me the hardest moment in your life. Just opening that box and saying it out loud is not going to make it all better. And in some ways, it makes it worse,
Mhm.
depending on what you've been through or what traumatic experience we're taking out of that box, it can be re-traumatizing and triggering. And so I very much want to build, again, practices, ways that we can support ourselves as we're talking about hard things. So before we get into the root cause and those hard memories, we are developing breathwork
Mhm.
practices. We are developing like who do we call when we're struggling?
Mhm.
What are our grounding exercises so that if I am bringing up this memory or this memory just got shoved into my present and I didn't want it to, I know how I can take care of myself. And
Yeah.
that feeling of empowerment is huge. Then it becomes less scary to look at those root causes and it becomes more like, oh yeah, let's dig out that root issue. I'm ready now to deal with it because I know I can handle thinking about it and having those feelings here in the present.
That's a great way to explain that because it would make sense that you can't just bring up all the junk all at one time in the very beginning. That would be really hard.
Yeah. And I hear from people though, like that's happening in therapy
Mhm.
sessions,
Mm.
and I think there's good intention there. We want to kind of know the person's story, so we kind of know what we're working on. But if it happens too fast, then it's not helpful. So
Yeah. Yeah. Gotcha. So, is there anything, we're at the end of our time, believe it or not, but
Mhm.
I want to make sure that you talk, to the intimacy shift more if that's something that you want to do. We've hit on it some, but I want to make sure that people know how to find you and where to find you and um, how to connect with you if they want to, which I hope they do.
Yeah, well, great platform. I love what you're doing. I love, being able to talk for this long about like me and things that
Yeah.
are important to me.
Yeah.
It's in the service, absolutely, of connecting with people and wanting to be helpful. And great opportunity for people to get to know me a little bit more. So it's not like an ad on Google or like a 2-second Instagram post, which I'm bad
Right.
at doing. I'm not
I
really
know,
a
me
social
too.
media person. So part of finding me on intimacyshift.com and getting that free resource means you get a weekly email from me where you can learn more week to week about things that I'm working on with my clients, issues that are going to be relevant to you and your relationships. So that's the best way to connect with me for free resources, for just learning more about all the things we covered today, from communication in our relationships to talking about hard things and sex and intimacy.
Mhm.
And of course, like happy to dive deeper with people, either through my 12 module program, which you can get all the information about, or on a more one-to-one basis if you live in one of the states that I'm licensed in. So I've moved around a little bit. So if you live in Colorado, Florida, North Carolina, or Illinois, I'm licensed in those 4 states and happy to, consult with you about a one-to-one or a couple with me therapy relationship.
Awesome. So, just for the sake of clarity, for those states, you see people virtually.
Correct.
Cool. Cool. Where are you now?
In Western North Carolina.
North Carolina.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Hmm.
Beautiful country up there. Awesome. Well, I'm super grateful for the work that you're doing. I think that we all, like I said, we all need our team. We need help people. I'm speaking for myself right here, but to help us see outside of our box. I tell people that all the time. I don't know what I don't know. Please just help me open that up a little bit so I can so I can see what I don't know that I'm not seeing. But that's what our team is for. So thank you so much for being here. I'm glad to connect anyone with you. I think that you're doing great work and I appreciate you so much.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah. All right, everybody. So we are Taste Life Nutrition Radio and Podcast, of course, streaming live every Thursday, 10 a.m. Mountain Time. I'm going to throw out there again to join us on the Ripple Effect, which is our health intelligence conversation. We're going to dive deep into topics that people are asking me about all the time. I'm like, all right, let's talk about it. So you can join me. It's live. It's a live Q&A. It's going to be a ton of fun. I love to just talk about this stuff. It's like the only thing I know how to really talk about. So we just talk about it all the time. So I'm just going to open it up to everybody and just hopefully have a bunch of fun with it and create a really cool little community, a little supportive community. So anyway, that will be starting July 1st, and it will be every first Wednesday of the month, 12 p.m. Mountain Time. So look for that. All of the links. So Dr. Dan's links are going to be in all of the places. Then, of course, all of my links, including the health intelligence conversation, that's going to be posted everywhere as well. So we'd love for you to join, and we'd love for you to reach out to Dr. Dan. And I think that's it. So appreciate you so much. Okay. All right, everybody. Thank you. We'll see you later. Bye, Dan.
Bye.